Reading 103 from the Psychological Commentaries on the Teaching of Gurdjieff and Ouspensky by Dr. Maurice Nicoll, Volume 3. Great Animal House, January 3, 1948. The Step Diagram. This work diagram has not been given for some time. I'm going to give it as briefly as possible. The work teaches that the creation of the universe is according to the law of 3 and the law of 7, and is a descending octave in which, at each level, or note, the law of 3 operates, so that each successive manifestation is under more and more laws or forces, from the Absolute down to our Earth and Moon. This is our ray of creation. The Absolute is under one law, the will of the Absolute, and so is unconditioned. The first order of worlds is under 3 laws, because all manifestation is due to 3 forces meeting at a point and cooperating, as active, passive, and neutralizing. The second order of worlds, manifested, is under the 3 forces of its own manifestation and 3 forces from the first order of worlds. The third order of manifested worlds is under 3 laws of its own, 6 laws from the order immediately above, and 3 laws directly from the first order, so is under 12 laws, and so on, down to our Earth under 48 and our Moon under 96. You see, therefore, that creation is limitation by scale, the lowest being under most, and the highest under least laws. This is the game. I mean that we live far down in the descending scale, so the will of the Absolute can only reach us indirectly through increasing mechanical laws. To reach us directly, which would be unbearable, all the instrumental notes in the octave would have to be destroyed. That is, the laws of the game would have to be abrogated, and so everything would be destroyed. That is why it is possible to speak of the universe as a game. When you realize that the universe is built on the principle of scale, you can understand that the energies at work in the upper parts of the ray of creation are finer than those acting in the lower parts. These finer and coarser energies are called hydrogens in the work. I'm not going to give you the complex diagrams that belong to this idea, but ask you simply to accept that energies are finer and coarser, and are called hydrogens. Comparatively speaking, we know that in the known octaves of physical energies, the energy representing, say, violet light is finer than that representing red light. That is, of greater frequency of vibration. And passing upwards a little in the scale of these known physical energies, X-rays are found, which are finer than violet light, so much so that they can pass through the body, and so on. So one can, by analogy, conceive how the energy of the Absolute can pass through everything. Now you have heard that the centers in man work with different energies, or hydrogens, according to their speed of action. Formatory center works with hydrogen of a density represented by the figure 48. Sex center works with a hydrogen of a density represented by the figure 12. That is, a much finer energy. Moving center works with hydrogen 24, and so is far quicker than formatory center, actually about 30,000 times, as we notice when running downstairs and suddenly trying to think how we are doing it. Instinctive center, the wizard alchemist that attends to the inner working of the organism, works with hydrogen 24 and emotional center also, or should do so. The higher emotional center works with hydrogen 12, and the higher mental center works with hydrogen 6. In all these centers, time is different, on the principle that 1,000 years in the sight of God are but as yesterday. A moment of consciousness in higher mental center would seem as years of our time. And so also, time in each note or level of the ray of creation is different. Each cosmos within cosmos has a different time. 30,000 years of our time is to a consciousness at the level of the sun merely a flash. Finally, the work teaches that the whole universe is growing, apart from failures in it. Now we come to the step diagram. This represents the universe as a strange kind of psycho-physical digestive tube in which everything eats and is eaten. According to this diagram and its inner significance, everything is defined by what it eats and what eats it. We eat all sorts of things, but we do not imagine that all sorts of things also eat us, although after a time on this planet we may come to suspect it. Recollect that we are told that if we are asleep in life, we feed the moon. That is, when we are identified in negative, and so on. So you see, we must grasp that a man may be eaten in many senses, not merely physical. Everything is food for something else, and something else is again food for something else. Pain and useless suffering feed the moon, the body, the earth. Now we can see in visible nature that life eats life. Animals, birds, fishes, insects eat each other. We eat them. Or again, a cow eats grass and we eat the cow, and so on. If everything living ate the same thing, living creation would be impossible. Things are cleverly fitted in, often into very odd corners. One thing is food for another in very odd ways, so you see that when it is said that everything is defined by what it eats and what eats it, the definition is very interesting. Now we must add one thing to this work definition. A thing, the work says, is defined by what it eats, by what eats it, and by the medium in which it lives. A fish and a bird, for instance, live in different mediums. Many fish live on fish and many birds live on fish, but they belong to different mediums. Again, the possible things that may eat fish are not identical with the possible things that can eat birds, and so on. You will notice that man is taken as hydrogen 24 in this step diagram. This means that man is essentially of this order or quality, namely hydrogen 24. As such, he eats hydrogen 96. Hydrogen 96 is his food. He does not eat whole animals. And in turn, he is eaten by higher beings, who are represented by hydrogen 6. Now, if you will notice, man as 24 is eaten by beings called archangels, whose being is defined by hydrogen 6, and not by angels, whose being is represented by hydrogen 12. But if man were hydrogen 48, he would be eaten by what are called angels, or planetary gods. If man's being were represented by hydrogen 96, he would be eaten by man. This is a very curious point, but I do not propose to discuss it. As I said, the step diagram has not been given for some time, and I have given it as briefly as possible.